just cut off here and just give a formal welcome to Jeromy Deibler. Thank you for coming, my friend.
Good to be here. Thank you both. Yeah, it's beautiful. And then my eyes are just in this, this room is just so full of stuff to look at. I love it.
Well, thank you. It's just,
It's like your version of Cracker Barrel.
There you go. In a very small
You're
area.
very contained.
it's you being a creative person yourself, it helps me just create.
Does it? This aesthetic does influence stuff I'm creating, but I don't know if I get anything done in this room. I need my stuff to be a little more minimal.
I understand. So if you're writing, you go to some place specific.
Well, depends. I mean, I do write at home, but I have to clean up first. But this is purposeful. There's a lot of stuff in here that I know you do on purpose. I mean, I've got teenagers at home, so I usually got to clean up their crap, and then I can actually get to work. My son's a musician too, and a writer and a producer, and so a lot of times he'll take my stuff. I mean, a lot of my stuff just disappears, and I got to go into his room and hunt it down.
That could be scary.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, what's mine is his, but it doesn't work in reverse.
Yeah, your son's name's Hutch.
Hutch. Yeah.
Where did you come up with Hutch's name?
We saw a press conference, and we were thinking about names. So Hutch is our firstborn, and we liked Samuel. That's a family name. We maybe call him Sammy, and that was kind of in the front running for a while. And then we were watching I think we were watching the news, and George Bush was doing a press conference, and he looked at somebody and he said, "Hutch, you're next." And we looked at each other and said, "Hutch, that's kind of cool." So his name is Jeremiah. His first name's Jeremiah. His middle name is Hutchinson Deibler. And so we're like, let's do that.
I like that.
Then I have a Hope Sadie Claire Deibler. We call her Sadie Claire.
Love it.
Yeah.
Sadie hyphenated Claire.
Yep. Her name's got a hyphen in it. She just had a long argument with somebody in one of the plays she's doing, and they just kept going, there's no way your name has a hyphen in it. That's not even, and she goes, look, it's on my birth certificate. My name has a hyphen in it.
So tell me, so you said Sadie Claire is a dancer.
Yes,
is
she
she
is.
involved in like modern dance? What?
Well, she dances here at the Children's Ballet Theater, actually right here in Spring Hill. And
Okay.
But she is doing a lot of musical theater right now. She's junior in high school, and this year she's just focusing on that stuff. Jennifer has historically taught my kids either at home or kind of like a hybrid of like homeschool plus. I mean, we started that as sort of out of necessity because we were still touring full time, and so my kids had bunks on the tour bus, and then when Hutch started school, she just kind of stayed with it, and they stayed with it anyway. So her junior year is this year, and she makes good grades, and so we just said, hey, why don't this year we're just gonna let you focus on all the stuff you love. So she's actually, I think Jennifer still has her doing a little bit of like some reading and some math, but for the most part she's just dancing and singing, and she's going to take some classes at the college and just kind of figure it out what she wants to do.
And does she enjoy musical production?
Yeah,
Does
that's
she
what
enjoy
she's
that?
doing. Yeah, she's in one all the time. It just kind of goes from one to the next. And yeah, she loves it. Last night she came home, and she usually comes into our bedroom, usually around 11 o'clock, and she'll kind of give us the rundown from the day, and she's like, guys, I'm really sorry. And we're like, what for? She goes, well, she was going from the theater to Chipotle, and one of the kids needed a ride, and so she said, yeah, I can take you. So the kid jumped in the back seat, and she said, why are you in the back? And he's like, I don't know. And so she said, just sit up here. This was weird. So he climbed up between the seats right as Sadie was stopping at a stop sign, and put his head into the windshield, cracked the windshield.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. Oh no. And we were
like he sprung forward and hit his head on this.
Popped his seatbelt off, jumped in the front seat, and as he was jumping up there, hit his head, And of course we were like, is he okay? And she's like, well, yeah, he's fine, but the windshield is cracked. We're like, it is? He must have hit really hard.
Yeah. He'd have hit really hard.
And she said, well, he didn't even know he did it. I was like, well, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Maybe you knocked him out. She goes, no, he's fine. But anyways, that's
wow.
sort of normal right now. I mean, you guys have had teenagers.
Oh, yeah.
But it's so fun. I mean, if I knew teenagers was going to be this fun, I would have had more. I mean, it is, the stuff they get into is just really fun.
Yeah.
I love it.
Were both children born when you were touring?
Yeah, well, Hutch was. I mean, we were still on the road a lot when Hutch was born. In fact, when Hutch was, I want to say 6 or 7 weeks old, we went out for probably our longest tour. We had an album called Ready to Fly. That was probably our best album. And so we started the tour when he was 8 weeks. We were talking about this yesterday. Maybe 7 weeks old.
Wow.
You're touring with a
brand new baby.
Wow.
Yeah. Jennifer's mom came out
First
with us.
brand new baby. That's even.
very first. Our first show, we took 6 weeks off after he was born. Our first show was like just a one weekend. We're just going to do this for a weekend, kind of like just a quick 3-day run. And then the next week we left for 66 days.
Wow.
On a tour bus. And of those 66 days, 46 of them were show days.
Oh,
and
so you didn't have
then
a lot of downtime.
No, we were out with the Big Daddy Weave boys were opening for us, and the tour went so well that we ended up doing another one in the spring, similar to it. And so it was full time, and we did that for a couple of more years, and then we took a long hiatus, like 6 months. Moved to South Africa for 6 months, and just sort of rested. And Hutch was almost 3 at that point. And then when we came back from South Africa, Jennifer was pregnant with Sadie Claire. And so by that time we had kind of decided we were going to sort of try to figure out a hybrid where we weren't on the road all the time. So I became a resident worship leader at a congregation here in town, and so we did that. Half our weekends were home, and then the other half were out on the road. So Sadie never really knew full-time touring, but Hutch did. As a matter of fact, Hutch and I and Sadie and a friend went to see Lizzie McAlpine up at the Ryman last year, and we came out of the Ryman, and her bus was parked just right outside the doors, and we were walking by, and Hutch inhaled real deep, and he goes, oh, the smell of my childhood. And I was like, well, I don't know, that kind of feels like an indictment on me, that diesel is the smell of your childhood, but, if you like it, great.
That's great.
Now, what type of bus did you have on your tours?
Well, it was a couple of different kinds. The one, when we were touring nonstop, we had the same bus for several years, and I think that was a Prevost. But then, whatever the bus company gave us, we would be out. And we did have buses long enough that we would get our name put on it and stuff, which now seems so dorky. But back then it was, it was like a dream come true.
Sure.
There was a time when a bus and a record deal was like winning the lottery.
Right.
I remember the first night on our tour bus, we had moved from, kind of upgraded from my Subaru station wagon to a van, to another van, to an RV, to another RV, and then finally, like 7-8 years in, a tour bus. And I didn't sleep at all that night. I just laid in bed going, I cannot believe that we're actually doing this. Like, there's somebody driving and we're sleeping. Well, that wears
great.
Off in a hurry.
Now, in your book, Liver and Onions, that RV on the front,
Yeah, that was one of them. That's an artist rendering of the actual shack.
what was that, like a Winnebago? What was that?
It was something like that.
Yeah.
And that one was actually nicknamed The Shack because it was just something. That we bought that. I think we actually knew going in that the plumbing had long since but we bought it and it was already 30 years old. And, whatever you did in the bathroom went, it just went right out onto the highway. But yeah, I mean, those were fun. Kids don't care.
No.
Yeah.
We were
That's
20,
great.
21, 22. We were just out there doing it. We didn't care.
Well, so
That's awesome.
in your bio it says that you come from Amish
Mm-hmm.
roots. What exactly does that mean?
My grandparents were Amish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were Pennsylvania Dutch Amish. I'm from Lancaster.
Mm-hmm.
They had my mom and her two sisters fairly young, and I want to say right as they were having their kids, maybe right before they were caught, they were found in a car and excommunicated. And so several of them, so my grandparents and I want to say my grandma's brother and my grandpa's brother, they all knew each other. They left the Amish community. They could either repent and stay Amish or not, and you were not going to tell Amos and Leah what to do. Both really strong-willed. So they bought a piece of property all together. My grandpa cleared it by hand, and that's where I spent the first 10, 11 years on that hill in Pennsylvania. So then my mom and my dad got pregnant in high school, got married. I didn't know them married. It didn't work. But I grew up there with my grandpa. My grandparents were 42 when I was born.
Oh,
And
well,
I was
young, yeah.
I was they said this, I was the son that they never held.
Mm-hmm.
They had 3 daughters, and it was, and I know, I mean, I get hard when your parents are divorced, but I'm not sure I had quite the same story as some divorced.
So was your grandfather like a father
He
figure
was
to
great.
you?
Yeah, he was great, and I grew. Mom went to work, and my grandma quit her job, stayed home with me, and was in a lot of ways idyllic. It was.
Especially Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it was a great childhood.
Yeah, it's
That's
beautiful out
great.
there.
Yeah, I did go live with my dad for a couple of years. I wanted to, and
Mhm.
he was around. I saw him on weekends or whatever, and they let me, and then I wanted to move back.
So he was still in the area?
Yeah,
Okay,
he was.
good.
Yeah, he died last year.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, thanks. 68.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah, healthy. It's weird. I mean, he led worship in the morning, went home from church, and died.
So your father is a musician?
He was. Yep, mom and dad both.
Really?
Yep, they had a band when they were in high school, and right after, mom played piano, dad played guitar and bass, and they sang. They wanted to be the Carpenters. So, yeah, they.
We've only just begun.
That's right, and I grew up listening to a lot of good music, Fleetwood Mac, and
Oh, man,
Billy
yeah.
and Elton and Boston, and my dad loved, all that kind of music. So did mom.
Yeah, it's kind of sobering. I'm 3 years younger than your father. I'm 65.
Yeah.
But
Well, he was young. The day that he died, he got remarried and had 2 kids with her. So my brother's 10 years younger than me. My sister's 18 years younger. And my brother called me, and of course I picked up the phone. I was like, "Hey, Deke, what's up?" And he goes, "Hey, man, are you sitting down?" And I was like, "Hang on." "Yes, I am." And he goes, "Dad just died." I was like, "What?" It was just so unexpected.
I'm so sorry. It's hard.
Yeah, but he had just led worship and he died that day?
Yeah, he came home, and Dad and I both love basketball. I think we were probably watching the same game. I was down in Florida. It was March, and Jennifer and me had taken Sadie Claire and a friend down to South Florida for a couple of days to stay at a friend's condo, and I think we were both watching the same game.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
So, yeah, it's still kind of fresh, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it is. Matter of fact, the book you were talking about, Liver and Onions, that morning, because I had been texting Dad, because there was a lot of details in there that I wanted to make sure I got right, just like the color of cars, and Dad and I both love cars, and so I was writing about one of his Corvettes, and that morning I finally was able to push send it to my editor, shut the laptop,
Wow.
and that afternoon he died.
I think it's interesting, Jeromy, that you're very transparent with your life.
Mm.
And, when you look at the books, your journals, or they're not really journals, they're devotional
Yeah.
poems, I think is the way
Yeah.
that you describe it. But with really, from the beginning of 19, you've been transparent about who you are, what you're about, your shortcomings,
Yeah.
your struggles, your trials. Where does that come from? Where do you feel like, of course it's your makeup, but you know what I'm saying? That not everybody is transparent or open.
Yeah, I think I've learned to become a little more that way. Maybe it's, I don't know whether it's just humility insurance. I don't know. I don't know that I was always as much. Although, Jennifer and me had a somewhat of a public life ever since we were married.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe at first we weren't as much. Now, I think people that knew us personally would have probably said, yeah, they're, pretty kind of like, it's pretty consistent with what they're like in public. But, in my 20s, I was probably a little bit more aware of like what our public persona would have been. I remember when we first got our record deal, we signed to a modern rock label, and our record company they purposely they signed us because we were different than all the other artists that they had. Their most popular artist at the time was this band called Jars of Clay, which is a really modern rock worship Christian band, and so I remember I kind of thought this was happening, but later I became really good friends with the president of the company, who has long since sold the company, but he's one of my best friends now, and he kind of confirmed what I was feeling early on. They would intentionally separate Jennifer and me in a lot of our press materials and whatever, because they just assumed that this, if people found out we were married, it would be less interesting to them. And so there's even a picture of ours early on where we're all just sort of sitting around in a photo shoot, but Jennifer's got her feet propped up on Brian's knees. And not in a suggestive manner at all, but people just thought we were brother and sister because we kind of look alike, and people would come to the shows and they'd hear us say that we're married, and they'd go, "What? I thought they were brother and sister." But when people did find out we were married, it made it more interesting, actually. So then the record label caught on to that, and they're like, "Well, we can market this," which probably wasn't healthy for us, because then it was all of a sudden our marriage became somewhat of a story.
Mm-hmm.
And people even though they say they want to know they don't really want, they kind of want the projection, which is fine. I don't know if I want to hear, but it didn't serve us well. And so part of us leaving and moving to Africa and all that was just to go, okay, who are we really? Because our marriage had become so much the identity of the band, and there wasn't a lot of band drama. Brian and Mike didn't care. I mean, they're like, yeah, go have at it. We don't, we don't.
Now,
really.
so because at 19 you came here to Nashville, right?
At 19.
Yeah,
I moved here when I was 20. Yeah.
And you were married at 20.
Jennifer always wanted to live here, and so she's from St. Louis, and when we met, she's like, I've always wanted to live in Nashville, and it made sense for me too. And I was like, yeah, that's great.
Because already by that time you had a sense that you were going to do music.
I wanted to. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, in the open you talked about me being eclectic, and I've always liked a lot of stuff, but back then I only knew one career path, and that was I wanted to play music. There was I didn't care about I've never really cared about being famous, no more than any other teenager wants to. I just wanted to be able to play music. That was my prayer. God, if I can just do this and not have to do anything else. It wasn't like I want to make $1 million. It was just like I'd like to be able to just focus on music. And God gave me that. I mean, I worked really hard and wrote a lot of songs, but I didn't know what a record deal was, until I started to become more familiar with the industry, and then over time, I started to want to do other stuff.
So, when I think about it, I wasn't ready to go anywhere at 19. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And for you to leave, were you in Lancaster then?
Yeah, I was.
Okay, so to pack up and move from the Northeast.
It was what was coming. It wasn't a big jump for me. All I wanted to do was travel. I think I got it from my parents and probably from Amos and Leah. I talked about Mama quitting her job to stay home with me, but Papa traveled. We nicknamed him Ram McNally because he always had an atlas out. I loved traveling with them. They would go quite a bit to Johnson City to see relatives, and I'd go with them every time. All I wanted to do was be on the road.
So were you like in church there? Were you playing guitar, singing, or
no? Yeah, singing some. I played piano growing up. Jennifer taught me to play guitar when we were dating, and I'm still just basic at it. I can pick it up and play, but I'm much more comfortable behind a keyboard.
Well, that's cool. I didn't know that. So,
yeah. Well, most of those
you were.
Yeah, no, I play guitar a lot. Most
Yeah.
of those early songs I wrote on guitar, but I was always just fine at it. Play rhythm, play enough to write songs and play in front of a crowd, but not. No one's ever going to hire me to play guitar. I'm just not good at it. But yeah, so when I was a kid, I just wanted to travel. I wanted to be a truck driver when I was little. But that was always one of my things. I wanted to go everywhere. In fact, when I was for Father's Day, this is more recent. This is when we were living in California. But for Father's Day, the kids got me one of those really big, nice maps that you could put pins in and stuff. And I had to do a lot of remembering. But I went and put a pin in every place I played music, not just where I've been.
That's great.
But I was like, if I've played music in this city, I'm going to stick a pin in it. And last January, I finally got a pin in every state. I was missing Wyoming, of all places. And somebody called us from Jackson, Wyoming, said, "You guys can play." I was like, yes.
So you still.
That's great.
You still perform.
Yep, still playing.
And but you're not pursuing it full time.
Yeah.
Or how's that?
No, it's we're still playing when we get asked, and we love to do it still. I still play. I play music here in town. I do a lot of filling in. I play at my church, and then we do travel and tour some. But that working the road it's a young man's game. It's crazy. If you'd have told me in my 20s or early 30s that there would be a time that I don't enjoy that part of it, I'd have said, "You're crazy. I'm always going to love this." But now, the schlep of leaving and getting on an airplane and packing and it just I do like it still, but it's not the love that it was. Now the playing music in front of people, that has not faded at all.
Oh, cool.
I love that as much as I ever have, if not more. But getting there, it has lost its sexiness.
So that's the linchpin then, is the travel is what wears you down, but your passion for music has never waned.
Yeah,
So-
I think it's the frequency of the travel. I still have to go. I have to get on an airplane at least once a month. If I don't, I begin to get cabin fever here in Nashville. But the rhythm of leaving every 2 or 3 days. I mean, I remember when we moved to California, I unpacked my toiletries kit, my overnight, like the toothbrush and all that. And I put it in a drawer, and it was like, oh, this is what normal is like, where you're, it's not in a bag sitting on my counter.
Wow.
And I like it. I like having my stuff in a drawer.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I still need to travel some. I had to find a balance.
Mm-hmm.
But now it is somehow, it's passed generationally, because Hutch cannot get enough. I mean,
Of course, he was right.
yeah,
He was in the back end
yeah,
going down the highway.
That was his rhythm, but it is. I think he might like it more than I did even. I mean, he just when we were in California, I can't remember how old he was, but he was old enough to be able to pack a suitcase. But I walked into his room one time, and his suitcase was packed, and I was like, "What are you packed for? Like, where are you going?" And he's like, "Nowhere, Daddy, but I just needed to pack."
Oh, that's funny.
And I said, "Well, let's go somewhere. I mean, you're already packed." So we drove out to Palm Springs and stayed a couple of
Oh,
nights.
I love it.
Great.
Came home, but a poor kid was packed to go nowhere.
That's funny.
Man,
I never did that. I mean, I didn't like
So you went
practice packing.
So you went to California for an extended time.
Yeah.
Did you move there? Or
We
did
didn't
you
know.
just-
We moved.
Oh, you did move there.
Yeah, we were gonna. We signed. Well, not signed. We gave a 3-year commitment to a church in Orange County,
Oh.
and stayed for 8.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, we did. I mean, we were having a lot of fun, and I had been invited. Actually, Jennifer and I both. But I mean, I guess officially the job was mine. But we went as a team, and Sadie was, I want to say she was 4 or 5, and Hutch would have been 9. And I had been leading worship at our home church here in Franklin, and we got invited to go and do that as just kind of a full-time job out in Orange County, and they offered also to kind of put me through a pretty extensive training for pastoring and soul care, and we just felt like it was next, so we said yes. After 3 years, I did resign. There wasn't a lot of drama.
Mm-hmm.
I just was like, we thought, well, how long are we going to be here? And so they said, well, what if you stayed? Well, what does that look like? And they changed my job a little bit. And I said, well, stay for a little bit. And so we stayed for another 4.5 years.
That's great.
It was great. Our family had a great time. Jennifer always wanted to live in California. We both loved the beach. We loved the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
That gave us that. It also was a predictable income. It wasn't contract work. It wasn't per gig.
Wow.
And man, there is something to be said for direct deposit. Like every 2 weeks, money just is in the bank. It's like magic. And so that was great. And our family got to just be normal. We moved to California to have a normal life,
Mm-hmm.
and it was great. The kids, didn't have to leave, and they could, we told them, you want to play soccer, you want to act, you want to dance, we're here. What do you want to? We don't have to go anywhere. What do you want to do? And it was lovely. And then eventually we were like, look, if we don't leave, our kids are going to be from here, and then it's going to be harder to leave.
Yeah.
And, we knew that we probably wouldn't be able to afford to buy a house there, so we came back here.
Yeah, I've got
Plus
friends-
families here, so
Yeah.
Well, so they're right.
Jennifer's family's here.
Yeah, in the area, so
Yeah.
that makes it really nice.
It is. It's close.
But you can't
Jennifer's
help but
dad-
love California. But
No, it's awesome. Jennifer's dad was sick, and she needed to be in the mix with her sisters, and so it was.
yeah,
it was
you
time.
talk about in your bio or actually I think it's the description for the liver and onions, but no, actually it's in the let me get it up here, the Daily Autumn,
Yeah.
because you talk about at the end boy, it was just a flood of deaths in your family.
Yeah, really it was.
Now that was coming back.
Yeah, it was coming back. We came back. You know, the instigator was that Jennifer's mom had been saying, "Hey, Dad's not doing very well," and so we didn't want it to be super abrupt, and so we told the community out there. We said, "Look, we're going to really have to get serious about coming back here."
Do you want to go to some more of those mints?
No,
Sure.
You want
please
some
don't.
more tea?
Please don't give us
Sure.
any more mints.
Well-
I can't. You shouldn't eat those mints as food, but I eat them as food. I can't have those at home either. You know, Costco sells those in a tub, and
Does he look well over there?
they just don't last. We resigned, and then they said, "Well, what would it look like if you stayed?" And you know, we kind of retooled your job a little bit, and so they made me the pastor of spiritual experience there. And so my job didn't change all that much, but what did change for us is that we kind of just told the kids, look, this is an adventure. We're not sure how long we're staying. We're going to enjoy it while we're here. And we did. I mean, we went to the beach a lot, went to the mountains. I remember, you know, I could have never imagined my life. I wouldn't have even had a context for my life. You know, I remember I was a Penn State football fan, and they would play at the Rose Bowl. And I remember seeing a video of Depeche Mode playing at the Rose Bowl, and it would have never occurred to me that I would ever even be
there.
And Coldplay came to town, and Hutch and me went to see him at the Rose Bowl, and of course for Hutch it was a concert. You know, we just went to see our favorite band, and I remember sitting there going, I cannot believe I am. Well, not that I'm here, but also what my life has become. You know, that's kind of, you know, I've had some pushback about the name of my podcast because it's called The Gospel According to Jeromy. But I kind of feel like we all, you know, there does need to be a good news according to us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I don't mean that to minimize the scripture at all. I love the Bible, but I don't think it was supposed to. You know, that was supposed to be the last experience of Jesus that we, you know, I think we're all supposed to experience the adventure of God and be telling people, look, this is what I learned. This is the thing that I'm finding out about God,
Mm-hmm.
exploring and figuring it out.
Right. That's good.
The scripture says they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony.
Mm.
And so, you know, they need to hear about the blood of the Lamb, but they also need to hear the testimony.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, our testimony is not just when we had a first understanding of God or prayed
No, not at all.
some sinner's prayer. It's an ongoing understanding of
Absolutely.
like, oh man, this is what I thought God was like in my 20s, but in my 30s and then my 40s. And I mean, we've all had that. I mean, I was a way better parent before I ever had kids. Then I had kids, I'm like, oh gosh. You know, I was like Job. I spoke about things I do not know.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's kind of the journey of life, where you know, things expand and grow, and you understand them better, and then you keep walking.
Let me ask you, and I didn't read this anywhere, I kind of pick up on this, and maybe, I don't know, tell me if I'm correct or not, but in your transparency and in the fact that, you know, your foibles and all, that you have an experience growing up in the church and worshiping, being a worship leader,
Mm-hmm.
songwriter, predominantly Christian market. But yet at the same time, what I pick up from you, and I may be wrong, but that having been there, done that, you have experience at some of the stuff that was incorrect, that was garbage, and that was maybe even injurious.
Mm.
Is that injurious? Is that a word?
That's a good word.
Injurious.
I like it.
You know,
I have to
and
use that.
that because you sang that now at this point in your life, to where, you know, when you're 20, you go, I know all that.
Yeah.
And then now at your age, you're going, Well, but there's been some tuning happening.
Yeah.
There's been some adjustments.
That is true.
Do you sense that?
Yeah, no, that is my experience. Although I'll have to preface what I'm about to say with this. I'm a bit of a unicorn in this, especially here in this town. Is I don't have a lot of I don't have that big church hurt, and I don't have industry hurt, which is weird. I mean, because I see clients every day that have at least one, if not both. But in God's great kindness, my experience with the church has been pretty good.
Good.
And my
What did you say?
I said good.
She said good, and I really like the music business. I've had relatively good experience. I mean, there've been some seasons and some pain points, but I don't like. I've been really.
You're not wounded by them.
No, I'm not. Now I've had my experience of pain. It's just not been in those two places.
Well, that's a blessing.
It's a huge blessing,
Yeah,
especially in the work I do now. Church hurt is real. People have been spiritually abused in their communities, and God has been grossly misrepresented to them. I think I think when I was younger, I really wanted to be right, and I've kind of learned to forfeit that a little bit. We talked earlier about, you mentioned transparency and all that, and I think when we decided it was kind of time to take a break from the road, and we stopped making the records the way we were, and we kind of got off the hamster wheel of it a little bit. I just was exhausted from trying to hold up a version of what I thought people wanted out of me. When we're in public life, a lot of times we adopt this representative version of who we are, and I tell people I don't think it's an imposter version. It wasn't an imposter version of me. It was just not complete. But some of that's appropriate. Like when you're in front of an audience playing your song, they didn't pay to hear everything that's going on in your life. I mean, it's like play the hits, man. But that can't be the whole story. And so going away for a while, and then I got sick, and that also is quite humbling. And then there was a flood here in Tennessee in 2010, and we lost our house. And
oh, did you really?
Wow.
You were in the one that created like a giant lake?
Mm-hmm. And our house as a result, we had mold start growing behind the walls, and it really was an ordeal. And so I would say my ability to pretend sort of just went away. I was kind of like, look, I don't have time, or I don't have the energy rather to prop up any kind of version of me. At this point, at that point, Jennifer and me were like, look, this is just, we only have the energy just to prop up who we really are, not some other version.
Well, I think it's important to point out, though, that when you talk about, public persona, private, you're not talking about some sort of a major contradiction of life.
No, there wasn't.
Just a sense of a weight that you realize people are looking to you. Yeah. They are seeing you as a model.
Yeah, there wasn't no, you're right. We never had, in God's kindness, we didn't have a life that we had to cover up. There wasn't like this, this false kind of thing. It was more, look, I just want to be able to be just Jeromy. The same just Jeromy that ran around the hillside in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. because I'm just me, and that's all I signed up for at the beginning. Was I'm just me, and she's just Jennifer, and we're just.
Now, you both have great voices, though.
Thanks, thank you.
I mean, and that's rare for a
but
husband
it's still
and
just
wife.
me behind that voice. Like, I do think somewhere, I kind of started to believe that maybe just me wasn't enough, and I had to maintain this really spiritual role model, all the answers, whatever that is, and I just it's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I don't want my kids to ever, I don't want their friends to ever be talking about me, and their friends go, "Your dad is so and so," and then have to go, "Well, you don't really know him." How many times have you heard that from a pastor's kid, or "Oh, your mom is the best. Oh, you don't." That's the version of mom that you see.
Right.
And that would crush me if they were to say that. And so, I'd rather people just know this, whatever this version is.
That's who I am.
Yeah, this is. I hope so. I mean, of course, I still am given to, I want to make a good impression and all that, but I think having that in front of you, plus, getting sick is a bit of an antidote for that. When you can't work and.
So now, what in the history did that happen when you were in California, or after you
Before.
came here? Oh, before you.
Yeah, I got sick. Well, it's hard to know when I have MS, and so I've heard other MS people say this before, that once you figure out what it is, you kind of start connecting the dots. Oh, that's why I felt that way. But I really started to feel it in 05, 06, was diagnosed in 07, had chemo in 08 and 09, which at the time was an experimental thing they were doing for MS. Now it's part of a protocol.
So now, how does chemotherapy address the scleroses in your brain? What does that?
Well, it can't take scarring back, but MS is a white blood cell disease, and so that at the time they were going, well, what if we kill all these white blood cells? Let's see if they reboot, and it's kind of archaic the way I made it sound, but it works. The problem is, once it went on the market, so I was part of a trial that the drug companies were paying for. But once it went on the market, it's still highly successful. It's just most neurologists don't have an infusion clinic, so it didn't take off the way that they had hoped, because it's really expensive to administer. I just kind of was in that Goldilocks window where the drug companies were paying for it, and I was in, they were already using this for cancer, so it wasn't like it was going to kill me or something. I mean, there were some risks, and I did have some of the side effects, but man, I'm so thankful for it, because it did sort of stop the progression of the disease. I still have what I had up until that point, but I'm not
And in
progressing.
what ways does it manifest itself?
Pain.
Yeah,
Most of my scarring is in my spinal cord, which kind of presents with numbness and neuropathy and pain and a little bit of the cognitive neurological stuff, but very little. Most of it is in my limbs.
Are they doing any stem cell treatment for MS now? I'm not sure.
I don't know, actually. You're the second person to ask me that, and I was in the trial for 10 years, so I saw a lot of doctors over monthly, just pokes and prods and all that, and I still am in the care of a neurologist. I just been in remission for a while.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
so,
thanks. Nobody would know probably if I didn't tell them. When I was trying to figure out what to do with my treatment, it's quite a while ago now, but the doctor, he made this available to me. He said, I need to tell you about this. And he said it was really promising, and without some kind of aggressive treatment. I was not in a good spot.
Mm-hmm.
And then, did all that. I was here for a while, then moved away, then came back, and I now since seeing that same guy, he's like, yeah, man, you're what they were hoping would happen with this.
You're the
trouble.
poster boy for
Well,
success.
if they caught it early, they can keep from, disability it's kind of a compounding reality.
Mm-hmm.
The more disabled somebody is, the harder it is to stay healthy. And
Right.
what they were hoping is to get, at the beginning they said, well, here's what they're looking for. They're looking for people who have pronounced stage 2 MS, but they can't have visible disability. So they like you couldn't be in a wheelchair already.
Mm-hmm.
They were looking for people in their 30s, and they wanted men. And I was like, wow, he's like, yeah, it's you, man. If you want in this, you probably get in it. But we both prayed about it, and we're like, yeah, it feels like if I can get it, I should do it. And I mean, it wasn't awesome.
Yeah.
It wasn't fun, but yeah, I feel pretty good.
I thought it was interesting.
I also recently started to pay a little more attention just to my overall health. Like I had high blood pressure, and
I didn't know I had high blood pressure until I went to the dentist one time.
Yeah.
And we can't do the treatment. It's like, what? And they said, oh, your blood pressure's through the roof. I said, what?
Yeah.
And but then, like you said, you go back and go, oh, that's why going up the stairs to my office, my face would feel flushed.
Yeah.
So
a doctor or somebody told me this a while ago. He said, "No, look, man, you need to pay attention to your weight." And I was like, "I know." He goes, "No, listen, you gain 5 pounds a year, and in 10 years you're gonna be 50 pounds overweight."
Yeah.
And turns out that checks out. I
No,
did that.
I'm there.
I did it, and the math adds up.
And that's the scary thing, is that at 5 pounds a year, in 10 years, you're 50 pounds overweight,
Well,
which is more.
I can gain 5 pounds in a day, without trying.
I know.
I mean, if I get around somebody who's a good cook, give me 3 days and I'll be 5 pounds overweight. So I have to pay more attention to it now.
This is totally off the subject. Back, my mind's just popping. And
Mm-hmm.
let me say, I'm gonna look at the camera and say that, if everything goes well and Jeromy would be agreeable, I can tell you folks that right now there is a plethora of things that I would like to know more about this man and his life and his family, because he is, as I told him before we actually kind of went live here, he's eclectic in a great way, and yet a vast field of information, of knowledge and wisdom from the life that he's lived. So we're kind of hitting the high spots, and so I'm not trying to jump around, but I was curious. You were talking about your father and the music, and Fleetwood Mac, and and Elton John, whatever. So who were your influences growing up that you feel like impacted your writing, your style?
A lot of those, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I liked the music they listened to. Now they listened. My parents listened to some Christian music, of course, like Amy Grant. I mean, she's to me the gold standard. As far as, well, I mean, she's just also a lovely person. But most of those pop rock bands, I mean, that's what I grew up listening to, and I liked it. And so that's kind of my musical heritage, with some Christian music smattered in there too. But Christian music didn't have quite the industry then that it does now. So there wasn't, Christian music was kind of like music you sang at church. We did have a Christian music radio station in our town, but again, it wasn't like it is now. So there was a lot of that music that I just heard and picked up. And I was in music stuff at school. I was a drummer in the band.
But what were you in the band?
A drummer.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah, in high school, yeah.
Because I noticed that you said you loved marching band.
I loved it. I still like it. Like if, PBS runs like marching bands, and, people, my family would come in the room and I might be watching like, oh dear.
Now, so what, did you play snare in marching? Okay, did you?
Yeah, I did.
Colton played the quads.
Yeah.
And the quints.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. There was this I mean, this is obscure now, but there's a thing called Drum Corps International.
Oh, yeah.
DCI.
Yeah.
BCI, yeah.
And I love to watch those guys.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, that's great.
I think I just think it's so fun and cool. My brother-in-law, Brian, is also a drummer.
Mm-hmm.
He was the drummer in our band for a long time, and
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, we get together and watch YouTube videos of
Oh,
drum
wow.
So
corps.
it
It's
was
the
brothers,
dorkiest thing you can imagine. These two dudes just sitting watching dudes play marching snares.
Oh, I
So
love
it was brother, sister, husband, and Michael Boggs. Is that correct?
No, so
No.
Brian, two Brians actually. So
Okay.
Jennifer and me married. Brian Smith, my best friend from when I was a kid, who is our neighbor here, just up the street. Brian and I grew up together. Our grandparents were actually friends, and so we've known each other ever since. It's weird if someone said, "Who's your best friend?" Sometimes I don't even think of Brian because
He's just a part of you.
yeah, he's just a. And then Michael Boggs played guitar, and then we had two other people that traveled with us. There were 6 of us on stage, only 4 of us like on record covers. Another
Mhm.
guitar player named John, Big John, and our drummer is Brian Barefoot. Now he's married to Jennifer's sister, so we are kind of all a bit inbred.
Now, of course, this just popped into my head because I was wondering this. Is there, because it's working for a lot of people to regroup
Mm-hmm.
and to come out with a new album. Are you thinking about that?
We have. Matter of fact, we just got 2 weeks ago. We got an offer to do. We've had some offers over the years to do like, a reboot or a reunion, or will you guys come play a show? When Jennifer and me go out and play music, it's very FFH-ish. Because we
It's y'all.
sang all the songs and I wrote most of them, so it makes sense. But this particular festival wants the original FFH, and they have enough money. Like when I threw out a number, they're like, "Yeah, that sounds doable." And I shot high.
You said, if I'm going to do this.
Well, I said to them, I said, "Look, if we're going to do this, it'd probably be this much." And they were like, "Oh yeah, I think that works." And I was like, "Oh shoot,
Wow.
that was too easy. Maybe I should have."
Gone higher.
But I called Brian Smith and I said, "Hey, and we know this same person." And so they had already been sort of priming him to do it. And he was like, "Hey, just to let you know, you might get this call." And so we were swimming at his house this summer, and he told me about it. And I said, "Well, do you have any interest in this at all?" He goes, "Well, probably not. And he threw a number out there, and he goes, "If they want to pay us this, maybe." And I was like, "Oh yeah, boy, wouldn't that be great?" And then this guy called me, and I gave him that number. And so then I called Brian and said, "Hey, by the way, they did call. And that number you said," like, he was like, "Ooh, well, that might be worth, like," I said, "Well, we'll see."
So
Be fun.
now were you producer on like your biggest hits?
I produced a lot of our stuff, but probably not the hits that you're thinking of. We had a producer named Scott Williamson, who he produced all of our label releases up through our 5th record. And he really is, he's responsible for a lot of our success. And so if you, like all of the big songs, everything from One of These Days up through Ready to Fly and You Found Me and Still Across and all that was him.
And when you say that was him, what do you mean by
He
that?
was the guy that, he was in the studio directing us, telling us what to do. He arranged for the mixes and, get the right people in the room. And he also was our record drummer. He's a drummer. So he played drums on all those songs, which is a pretty big signature of a sound.
Well, yeah, especially One of These Days.
That's it. Yeah.
When you go right into the chorus,
Mhm.
you have this drop out,
Yeah.
and you have this.
Yeah. That's Scott. Matter of fact, I wrote One of These Days on acoustic guitar on my mom's back porch. And well, you said you're learning. You ought to, if you're learning to play guitar, like you said, you ought to play that because it's only 2 chords. And I only knew 3 chords at the time, so I wrote that song pretty quickly. And I always imagined it being this kind of acoustic, folksy, campy. And the first day we recorded that song, I remember taking Scott into the hallway and going, Scott, I don't think I like this, man. This is just not what I pictured. And he's a very strong-willed guy, and I needed that. And I kind of met my match with Scott, and he just looked at me and said, "Yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. This is going in a good direction. Just trust me." Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad.
That's good.
Before I forget about it, a mentor in my life, a guy named Keith Moore, he's at Dogwood Church in Peachtree City, Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
And he planted that church. It's a huge church now, like 45 years ago.
Okay.
Wow. But I sent out a prayer request, when we were supposed to meet last week. Keith texted me back. He said, "Kenny, this is fun. Tell him that I pulled up this song," talking about one of these days, "last week and sent it to our staff and worship planning team, telling them this is one of my favorite heaven songs of all time, Keith."
Oh, awesome.
And so,
I love it.
It lets you know.
And
that's why when I saw...
And then our 33-year-old daughter-in-law walked out.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
so
cool.
I said, we're going to be...
The foodie?
Jeromy
Okay.
Deibler on the show, and she
and
goes...
I'm waiting to get a text any minute that she's gone into labor, so if I jump up...
Oh, my gosh.
But so
how fun.
She said, yeah, dee-dee-dum-dum-dum-dum.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Now that one I might have a do-over on.
Okay, but what's hilarious is...
That's great, though.
Like, how many years has that been?
So long.
She's... How old is she now?
33.
She's 33. But that she immediately hears a but I still don't know what that's called when you do just
Big Fish. Oh, the scatting thing.
Is it just scatting? Is that what it
it's
is?
just scatting.
But it's hilarious that Claire said, "Oh yeah, Big Fish."
Well, you guys will appreciate being from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. That one of these days was probably the song that was the one that kind of was the catalyst for so much of the next 3 or 4 years for us. But before we released One of These Days, we did release Big Fish. And there were some stations that just wouldn't even touch it. And we kind of knew that was going to happen. In fact, we had two really well-respected industry people here in Nashville tell us that, because we were getting kind of mixed review. Big Fish was also, it was on a record before that like an independent record. And that some people just loved it, some people hated it. And we were like, we kind of want to re-record this, and so we did, and it was on that record, and there were a couple of, and these guys are still really close friends of mine, but one of them I think was John Mays, who's the head of Centricity now. He was like, "Man, you can never release this song. It will be the end of your career." He basically just said, "This is bad." But we did, and KLTY in Dallas. Yeah.
Frank Reed.
I don't think that it is anymore, but there was this. It was at the time. John Rivers told us this in person. I have so many good Dallas stories because we got to play it so much in Dallas. But he said that's
where I grew up listening to it.
He said this is the most requested song in the history of this station. And that kind of, even though other stations didn't play that song, that got out. And at the time, this is pre-K-Love, this is pre the big, networks that program the whole country. At the time, John Rivers at KLTY, the station was so big that other stations all over the country, they wouldn't listen to the songs that the label sent. They would just play whatever John was playing. They would watch his playlist and be like, if it's working in Dallas, it'll work here. Yeah. And thankfully, that worked. And so when One of These Days came out, he was like, yeah. Amy Grant is everything that you would, I've never met, well, I remember we were in the studio recording a record, one of the earlier records, and it was at the Bennett House here in Franklin, and we were working in it had 2 recording studios in it. I can't remember which was the A room or the B room, but one of them was Keith Thomas's studio, and he had it all the time. And I think Amy was making House of Love or one of those records, and we were in the other room, but they had a shared kitchen. And so, we were hanging out in the kitchen, and Amy was there, and it was my first experience with her. and we got to spend just some time with her, just talking and hanging out. And I just remember just the way she treated us and the way that she carried herself with this just such a welcoming, sweet, humble, whatever. And this story, I mean, I've heard other people tell the same story about her. And I remember being so thankful because I really did want to be humble. And I felt like, Lord, okay, now I have something to aim at. Like, this is what that looks like. And of course we just watched and followed, just like everybody else. We just stayed fans, and we were playing, actually, we were playing in Houston. We were playing at the old Astrodome. It was they have a big station there too, KSBJ. And they were having their 20th anniversary, and they had booked out the original Astrodome, the weird one, the bowl. And I don't know how they did it, but they brought in, they basically emptied out Nashville, and they brought in every Christian artist. They had 2 stages going. One faced one side of the Astrodome with a screen so that the other side could watch, and there was no sound checks. It would go from one side, and then the band on the other side of the curtain would play while the other band just went on for 12 straight hours, and we all played 25 minutes, just back and forth and back and forth. And we got off stage, and we were kind of going back to the green room, and I saw Amy come around the corner, and she looked at me, she said, I want to talk to you. And I was like, oh man, what did I do to Amy Grant? And she came up and she said something really nice to me. I mean, it was like, this thing you did, I've never heard anybody do that. And what was the best is other people heard it.
Yeah, really.
And I just remember going, oh my gosh, like, Amy Grant likes me. She likes my stuff. But she's wonderful. I have to say, for as much as I make fun of Texas, because I always tell people Texas pride gets on my nerves, and as much, I have to say our Texas experience has been. We don't have any Texas hurt either. It's been wholly positive. Like KSBJ, KLTY in Dallas. You mentioned the brown bag lunch thing. That's a thing for your listeners that they have been doing for decades. Where I guess because they have the money. I want to say their slogan is "God listens" or something, and I think maybe that is God's radio station, because they'll pay artists to come in and go play at these big malls, and it's free. People just show up with a bag lunch, and so some people had started telling us when we got played, they're gonna want you to come do a brown bag lunch. I had no idea what they're talking about. When someone says brown bag lunch, what do you think? You think, oh, we'll probably go to the station and have Chick-fil-A or something.
Yeah.
So we got there, and we got to our hotel. They picked us up the next morning in a really nice limousine. And this is back when limousines were like still cool. And I was like, man, we're getting picked up in a limo to go do a brown bag lunch. And we got to this, it was in a mall, got to this mall. They said, hey, we're going to take you upstairs and actually give you lunch, talk to you a little bit, and then you'll come downstairs and you'll play your set. Great, whatever. I don't know what we were expecting, but we thought that'd be a smattering of people that come. We came down, and as we were going down to play the set, someone told us, they said, hey, by the way, NSYNC was here last week, and you guys have outdrawn NSYNC.
Wow.
And we said, are we talking about the same NSYNC? NSYNC? And we went, and there was just a sea of people. I mean, and we played music, and then we, spent the afternoon kind of meet and greet, sign, autograph. Max Cato, I was a big fan of his books. And I don't know, I don't guess I broadcasted a whole lot, but we were down in San Antonio playing at his church, and, he's like the president down there. And so we had sound checked and whatever, and we were just back in catering, eating dinner, and I guess either me or Jennifer, the tour manager, somebody had told the promoter that I'm a pretty big fan of Max's books, and so after dinner they said, hey, we've arranged for you to meet Max before the concert. I was like, great, that's wonderful. What they didn't tell me though is they brought me into a room, kind of like you would kind of be waiting for the president, and they said, okay, we're going to go get Max, and then they brought Max in, and I said, hey, Mr. Locato, nice to meet you, and there were, a handful of other people in there with us, and then his handler said, okay, everyone, let's give them the room, we're going to give Jeromy and Max some time alone.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't want that, because he didn't know me, and I thought, oh no, what are we going to talk about? And everybody else left, and then it was just Max and I sitting there just going, so, how you doing?
Did he ask for your autograph?
No, he did not. But I mean, I think he probably did his best to make it normal, but it was really uncomfortable, because I didn't, I was like, I love your books, this, but the next time we were down there, he found out and called ahead and arranged for us to play golf together and stuff. So it was fun.
Nice.
Yeah, from what I remember, I mean, it's been a long time, but he's a great guy. Then he found out kind of we had some like ancillary ministry stuff that we would do at our shows, and we gave people a chance to respond and that kind of thing. And so what he did was he saw us do what we do, and he arranged for everybody that comes to one of our shows to get one of his books. And he sent them every time we needed them. He sent them here to our storage in Nashville, so that if we gave an invitation or something, they got I want to say it was called The Gift or something, but it was kind of like a Gospel of John commentary of his, and it was great. It was a great partnership for a really long time. Cool guy.
Talking about books, you're an author, as we mentioned a little bit.
I'm a big deal, Ken. I mean,
I think so.
Well, I like your book, and I didn't find out some of these things about Jeromy until I started doing research for the show.
About an hour ago.
And so I haven't had time to read your book, but I will be reading your book. And the next time, hopefully, we can talk. And maybe just do a deep dive on the book.
That sounds great. I'll come back anytime.
We'll pick up later.
Maybe at my place.
Hey,
You can come to the international studios of the Gospel According to Jeromy.
All right.
Let's do it.
There's not nearly as much stuff to look at. But
Can I bring my gear, or do you just want to do an audio?
well, I have gear.
Oh, you have gear?
I have a podcast.
Well, but video?
I do.
Do you have a video podcast?
I do.
I didn't know that.
I'll send you the link.
Is it on YouTube?
Mm-hmm.
I've just been listening to the audio.
There you go.
Dozens of
you
viewers.
mentioned, I did not know
He's
this.
selling tens of books.
There you go. I love that.
Well, that is so cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, we started out, so I'm pretty late to the podcast game. And so Jennifer and I and our co-host, well, Drew and I met up in Franklin a little more than a year ago, and we were talking about some other stuff. He kind of liked my content. He said, Jeromy, can I do anything to help you? He goes, I produce podcasts. Would you want to do maybe 6 or 8 episodes together, make people acquainted of what you do, your work, or you're done? I said, man, that'd be great. And so it took us a little while to get it going, and I said, maybe Jennifer could come on with me, just the two of us. And then I started to get to know Drew during this process, and he's really great. He's a really good guy, and also a great story. So I said, Drew, why don't you do it with us? And so we plan to do like 6 of them, and we're a year in. I mean, he and Jennifer have such a good banter. But what's really funny is I had forgotten how unique our podcast is, because when I got to your door today, we spent the first 15-20 minutes just hanging out and talking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our rule when we do our podcast is we're not allowed to do any of that, and so Drew comes in the house and we don't talk until we are pushing record. And Drew and Jennifer have never spoken outside of being on a microphone, and you can tell. I mean, it's like when Jennifer goes, "What do you do this week?" Like, she doesn't know. It's funny. Far From Home is what the acronym stands for.
Mm-hmm.
And when we signed our record label deal, turns out there was another Far From Home. And they like, I mean, and this happens all the time, where two bands will have the same name, or two businesses will have the same name, and they just weren't having it. They were like, nope, we had it before you, and
Wow.
and it's ours. And so, you know, I tell people, try to find a name that doesn't get shortened to an acronym, because that's what you're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Remember Pray for Rain? They were
Mhm.
just PFR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
You know, Goldie's Last Days is at PFR.
Goldie's Last
Okay,
Days. Yeah.
So here's the thing. For the longest time, I thought y'all were the same group.
Yeah, right.
I thought PFR and FFH, I thought of them as FFH. So I would want to hear your songs, and I'd say, well, Goldie's Last Days. So I'm listening to it, and so I'm trying to find one of
That's
these
not
days.
it.
It's like, I can't find one of these days.
Yeah.
So wait, you know, this is like way back.
Mm.
And I thought, oh, wait, no, it's PFR, FFH.
Yeah.
So it's a small world.
Mm.
But Jeromy Deibler, I tell you what, thank you so much for
Well,
coming to our house.
Thank you for pronouncing my name right. I mean, you know how much we get Deibler and Dieber, and oh man, for people to get it right.
A good German name.
And thank you for the tea.
Oh, you're welcome.
I can't believe this.
Would
doesn't
you
have
buy
sugar in it. Well, I would definitely want the recipe. I mean, I don't know if
No, we're not selling tea.
I'm pretty
No.
cheap,
We
but
didn't- we
I
didn't
might
bring you to-
buy it.
No,
actually. There's no sugar
It's
in this.
it's got a little bit of Splenda.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
for a
'Cause
gallon.
it's
of-
Usually, it's unsweet tea has got like a bitter.
Mm.
We were talking before we went on air about. I grew up with, you know, we had a lot of mint just growing in the yard, and I mean that's like a weed. You can't. And so I would just take mint and just suck on the leaves, and then my family would make sun tea, where it just brewed out in the sun, and Southern sweet tea is just so sweet.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
it's ridiculously sweet. But this is great. It's refreshing. I can tell that you've got the little pellet ice maker
Well,
thingy.
yeah.
Yeah, that's only rich
Well
people have
done.
those ice makers, by the way.
$45.
Are you serious?
It's
Yeah,
it's,
it
it's
is
not
good.
an original. It's
That's
just
crazy.
It is amazing.
That's good ice,
Yeah,
though.
we
You
love
just-
it. Yeah.
You just
I mean,
chew your ice all
Yeah.
day long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
when you think it's going to take forever, if you sit there and watch it, it's like it made 10 pieces, but it works phenomenal. So we
Yeah.
bag it and freeze
That's
it.
a good idea.
And I have a big tank, I call it, it's a Tao, T-A-L, but
Yeah.
it's like a liter.
Yeah,
or two
okay.
liter. It's huge, it's in there. But I pack it about halfway, and so it really encourages me to drink because it's
Yeah.
always just ice cold.
Yeah.
But definitely we'll pick up again, my friend.
That sounds good. I'll come back. It's
yeah.
not
Right.
far. I mean, we're just down the road.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's so much to talk
I'd
about.
probably get Jennifer to come too.
You know, I tell you
That'd be
another
great.
idea
That's what I
that
told him.
we might consider also. I'd love to come to your studio and just
That'd
see
be
what you got going. But then also,
You don't want to see what I got going. After being in here, I got going microphone and a light.
but can I mention the place where we saw you, the
Oh
restaurant?
yeah, down in Franklin. Yeah,
Is that
was it
okay?
Meredith's? Is that where
Yeah,
we
can
were?
I,
Yeah,
I don't know if I
yeah.
can say that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I thought it would be so cool to do. I mean, I would need better gear,
A remote.
but to do some talk at Meredith's.
Yeah.
I know we have the element of the external wind.
Oh,
I
who
mean,
cares?
but got the Zoom here. It works pretty well.
I used to record videos at Meredith's early.
Inside
So-
or outside?
Well, inside. So the guy that owns Meredith's,
Mhm.
he moved down from Lancaster a year before I did, and our grandparents started a church together. They
Oh.
knew each other, and so I've been coming to Meredith's ever since we lived here. I mean, I'm there so much, y'all. I mean, I used to write my blog was called Meredith's Monday. I mean, I've gotten mail there twice, but for a while I would go in there at about 5 in the morning and bring guests in and shoot some videos at Meredith's. I've had Schultz on and Jason Ingram and Mia Fields, and we just
Mark Schultz.
we
Yeah.
just sit and talk about music, and
Man, we got to talk about Mia later, but I noticed her name on
you know me.
yeah, well, I don't know her. Colton writes with her.
Oh, does she? Does it? Yeah.
Yeah, but I kept seeing her name everywhere, and
She's
I think I
great.
told you that when we first met.
Yeah.
It's like, Colton, wait, who is this person that's showing up on all the hits?
Yeah, she's great.
And, then he explained to me. Well, that's cool. So Yeah, if you'd be open to that,
Yeah, totally.
because what would we? I'm thinking big here now, Jeromy.
Think big.
I'm trying to encroach on your life, but to sit and not be so compressed all the
That'd be
time.
fun. Yeah.
To where I'm studying you, and don't take that the wrong way, but I'm saying, it's a blessing to be able to engage someone with the variety of life you've had,
Yeah.
and the ups and downs, and then your soul care, which we haven't even gotten to. There's a whole plethora of things to explore there, especially your training
Let's do it.
and those things. So
Yeah.
if you're open to that,
That'd be
you
great.
can follow up.
We can do it at Merity's too sometime at 5. They close at 5. So we can just go in when they're closing and
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
yeah,
And
it'd be
if you
fun.
feel like they'd be open to it.
Yeah,
'Cause I think
well,
even with a couple of GoPros,
yeah, it'd
and,
be fun.
Keep
We
it
did
simple.
we did my son's birthday. My son turned 20. My son turned 21 on July 21st. It was his
Wow.
golden. I didn't know about golden birthdays till Jennifer told me about it. But
Mhm.
like if you turn the number on the date, and
Okay.
so we did it at Merity's, and we had a little band. Like we were part of the band, and
How fun.
it was really fun. Hutch played some of his stuff, and
Oh,
it
cool.
was really
That's
cool.
great.
And I've spent so much of I've probably spent more time in that bakery than I have in my own kitchen.
Oh, it was great, man.
Yeah. We'll have to meet up there.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I am. If you ever want to find me,
Well,
you just call Merity's.
Because the picture that's on your podcast, so you're sitting across from me in the outside, and I'm sitting there talking to my wife, and I said, I know that guy. I know
Yeah.
that guy from somewhere. So, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
but I would not know what you look like now, but my search for you and your music
Mm-hmm.
now, it's like, oh, he's got a podcast. You know?
Yeah.
So then I've got this picture, and then there's Jeromy sitting across from me, and I'm like,
Weird.
wow, why do I know that guy? So,
So much stuff that we would never know about happens in that bakery. If you're in there long enough, you start looking around going, huh, I wonder what those guys are talking about. Like,
well, I tell you what, we got to cut it off like licorice, right? We got to find a place. But I'm excited. We've had a wonderful time. Thank you so much for your time.
thank you both for
Today.
having me in your home.
And
Thank you,
it's
Susan, for the
Appreciate
tea.
it's a blessing. So
Yeah.
I tell you what I'm going to do. That'll be tagged onto the show. I'll do a video and kind of do a rundown on some of these things that Jeremy's involved in to get the ball rolling, so that as a guest on our show, you will know about Jeromy and all that he brings to the table. There's
Maybe
a
I
lot
could be a
going on.
recurring.
There you go.
What's that?
I could be a recurring. guest.
I'm
How about
open
that?
to it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Because, man, talk about soul care, talk about life in the studio.
Yeah.
And one of my passions is for people who have an interest in music in Nashville, but what's it like?
Yeah.
In your experiences, that's a whole other world.
You know what? I just realized something though, that this may be a deal breaker for you guys. Is I grew up outside of Philly, and we were taught early that deeper than our love for the Eagles was our hatred for the Cowboys.
No.
That doesn't bother
That
us.
doesn't bother you guys? Okay.
No,
We're good.
no.
I like to see the Eagles win, but even more so is watching the Cowboys,
Cowboys
lose.
lose.
Oh, I love
And they
it
do
so
that
much.
well. The
That's,
Cowboys.
Yeah, they're doing a good
you
job
don't-
at
you
it.
don't
The
have a problem
Cowboys.
getting
And
that.
so that now, I will say that is one tier. Now, for Dad and I though, we had season passes for the Sixers games, and
Oh,
more than anything, we hate the Celtics. We have to hate the Celtics.
it's a rite of passage. You have to hate the Celtics.
If you are from that part of Pennsylvania and you don't hate the Celtics, something's wrong.
No, you're not real.
Yeah.
They're massive people. We go to the Mavericks, and Nash comes back and plays against the Mavs, and what's his name, Dirk.
Yeah.
And I said, he's a shrimp. I mean, Dirk was just pushing him all
Yeah.
over the court, and we had the guide, and
Yeah.
Susan leans over, and she said, Kenny, Nash is 6'5". I said,
Yeah.
I mean,
I
a dwarf.
like the Mavs. They're fun to watch. I love Luka. I mean,
but anyway, we got to.
all right, yeah, we gotta
Hey,
go.
thank you so much for coming,
we
Jeremy.
can do a
We'll
whole
pick up.
other basketball podcast.
I'll get you some more of those.
No, please don't. Oh, y'all, this was fun.
Awesome, man.
You guys, you're an easy interview.
Well, thank you, brother. You're an easy person to talk to.